Okay, good morning everyone. Thanks for taking your time out this morning to come and listen to me waffling on for the next 25 minutes. Those of you who don't know me, my name's Darren Darling. I'm the head of training for the DPF Doctor network. I'm also a vehicle technician, so I'm just like you guys. I spend my day in the workshop fixing cars. So just in case you were confused by the clean hands, because most of our work's diagnosing problems rather than getting my hands dirty. But so been a technician now for 32 years, so I'm not a salesman, and I'm here just to talk to you today a little bit about some do's and don'ts of DPF repairs. Hopefully you can take a little bit away from the session, and you can add some things into your own process to make life easier and improve your fix rate. So 30 minutes or 25 minutes is not a long time to talk about DPFs. We have about 8 days worth of content in our training program, so we're going to just give you a quick snapshot, whiz through some things, and at the end we'll take some questions, and I'll be available to discuss anything with you at the end of the session. Okay? So what we like to focus on with DPFs is keeping things simple. Okay? Let's not get hung up on the science of a DPF. It simply is a soot filter located in the exhaust. We don't have to over elaborate things. So for keeping our thought process, it is there to catch soot and then turn it into something less harmful when it goes out the exhaust. Let's keep it simple, okay? So, if it catches the soot, how does it get rid of it? So, we all know about regeneration. So, DPF regeneration, let's think of that as the DPF's own self-cleaning process. If the vehicle is in your workshop with a DPF fault or DPF problem, then something is wrong. Because if the vehicle is doing what it's designed to do and carrying out its own self-cleaning process, then it should not be in your workshop, okay? So let's think of it that way. It's designed to take care of itself. They're not this problematic thing that everyone thinks about. There is always a reason for your DPF problem. So how often should the self-cleaning process take place? On average, once per full tank of fuel. The DPF should do a regeneration to keep itself clean. Some people mistakenly think it only takes place when the DPF is blocked, but it is there to keep the DPF clean. So the self-cleaning process is there to prevent the DPF from blocking up. It is not there to wait until it's blocked and then try and clean itself. So on a healthy vehicle, your customer should not experience anything unusual. When conditions are met, it will carry out its own self-cleaning process, okay? So, this is also good information to pass on to your customer. Don't bore them with science, okay? It self-cleans itself. So, what's important for us isn't the sciencey stuff that happens inside that DPF during the self-cleaning process. What is important is what do we expect to see? There's no point in looking at numbers on a scan tool if we don't know what we are expecting to see. So, our target temperatures, we are looking for a minimum of around 550 degrees. Depending on manufacturer, they do differ slightly, but up to around 700 degrees on some Asian vehicles. That is what we're looking for temperature-wise. And the process should complete in under 20 minutes. So what we're looking for is when the vehicle does its own regeneration on the road, it brings it up to temperature. We've got our sweet spot of over 550 degrees, and everything completes in under 20 minutes. That's what we need to know. We don't need to know about the magic that's going on in there. As technicians road testing the car, what temperatures am I looking for? What duration am I looking for? Okay, let's keep our thought process simple and focus on what we need to know. Okay? So now is the point where you all think I've lost the plot because I've got a wheelie bin on the screen, yeah? Let's keep it simple. If you go outside in your backyard tonight and your wheelie bin's overflowing, okay, is it quite simple? You're either putting too much rubbish in there or the bin's not getting emptied. Is that about right? It's got to be one or the other, isn't it? Is that very much different to a DPF? If a vehicle's in your workshop and the DPF's blocked, is it that much different to your wheelie bin? Okay? Now, the wheelie bin might be overflowing, right, because the bin man didn't turn up. He's on holiday, or the bin lorry broke down. That would be a condition not met, wouldn't it? That would be like a customer is not taking the car out for a drive to allow the self-cleaning process to complete. It would be the same category as running with a low fuel level. So it's below the minimal fuel requirement for regeneration to take place. All of them scenarios fall into the bin has not been emptied, but you're putting the same amount of rubbish in there as you always do. Does that make sense? Start thinking of your DPF problems more simply, okay? And you'll untangle things a lot easier. So putting too much rubbish in there, for me, that's how I know when my kids are home from uni, because it's full of wine bottles and pizza boxes and empty beer cans and stuff like that. So to fix my problem, I've got to get them sent back to uni and, go back to a normal amount of rubbish going in there. So what categories would have there is if you've got an intake leak, a boost leak, EGR stock open, the vehicle's running sooty, it's putting more in than normal, isn't it? So the binman's still coming once a week to empty the bin, but it's now not often enough, is it? Because you're putting so much stuff into there that it's now not frequently getting emptied enough. So the once per tank of fuel self-cleaning process might still be taking place, but it's now not frequently enough. Does that make sense? Okay, so then, that's me, by the way. I like an empty. So I've had to come along and empty the bin myself, all right? So start thinking about your thought process without all the scientific stuff and why is that blocked up, okay? So to do that, before we look at the vehicle, before we start plugging in a scan tool or opening the bonnet of the vehicle, we need to look at the bigger picture. So if the vehicle needs to carry out its own regeneration, self-cleaning process, once per tank of fuel, we need to know before we look at the car how the car is being driven by the customer. Otherwise, how do we know? So there is a step of the process that you need to introduce before you start diagnosing the car. We need to know how the vehicle's driven, how often it goes on the motorway. Does it go on the motorway, but it's in rush hour? And in rush hour, they're slowing down, coming to a stop, stuck in traffic. Because at that time of day, they might be on a motorway, but their average speed is 15 or 20 miles an hour. So having a simple questionnaire for your customers gives the technician in the workshop some key information. And what that should tell them is, we know if the customer is doing everything they need to do to allow the vehicle to do what it's designed to do. Okay, so you introduce that before we start looking at the vehicle. And that shouldn't take more. In our workshop, our questionnaire takes about 2 minutes to go through with the customer, but we know everything we need to know about the vehicle at that point. What its average journey is, how it's fueled, how it's serviced, how long the problem's been going on for, which warning light came on first, what are the symptoms you're experiencing. That goes for any diagnostic job, doesn't it? Not just DPFs, but it's a really important part of the procedure. Okay, so the longer we stay, by staying in the bigger picture for a little bit longer, it makes the pinpointing the problem a lot easier, doesn't it? So we've gathered lots and lots of information, and then we're only going to narrow it down to any pinpoint testing once we've identified where the problem is. Because you could waste a lot of time on a vehicle doing unnecessary tests. Okay? So if you're doing lots of fancy, elaborate tests on a vehicle that are unnecessary, let's gather as much information and let's start funneling down the problem before you start, pulling out scopes and things like that, So I know I'm going through fairly quickly here because we've only got a short space of time, but one thing that we see a lot with workshops, you've gathered the information, you've found your fault, you've fixed the car, and now you want to tackle the DPF blockage. Forced regenerations. How many people do that on a regular basis? Carry out a forced regeneration to complete the repair. A lot of people will because it's what the manufacturer procedure is, isn't it? So you're not doing something wrong, but in our own workshop, we never, ever do a forced regeneration for various reasons. One, it carries a risk factor because there's no airflow, it's sitting in your workshop, it might overheat, things get too hot. There's some other reasons which I'm going to go on to. But most importantly, is there any diagnostic value in a forced regeneration? And this should be a yes or a no answer. Is there any value? Are we getting any good information out of hitting a button, seeing the RPM set at 4,000 RPM for 15 minutes and then it says complete? Have we gathered any good information from the car? And the answer is no, absolutely not. But how about we learn the behavior of that make and model of vehicle, and we know what the trigger points are for regeneration, and we road test the vehicle, and we know we're expecting it to go into regen any time now, and we watch the particular vehicle, not the make or model of vehicle, we are watching that exact vehicle go through its own self-cleaning process. Now do we have any really good diagnostic information? We now know exactly how long this particular car takes to complete regeneration. We know it's exactly 17 minutes. It's not, might be 25 or it might be 15. The magic has happened in 17 minutes. My temperature reached 580 degrees C. We're happy. So if you've got a driving condition fault and you now need to go and fix the customer, which is the hard part, if we watch the vehicle do its own thing without forcing anything, you guys now know 100% that that vehicle can do what it was designed to do if it is driven correctly. Would you all agree with that? Now you have some really, really valuable information for after the repair to pass on to your customer, okay? It might be something to do with a gearbox issue. 8, 9, 10-speed gearboxes, are they good for stuff like this? No, they're not. Because you get an old retired gentleman sitting at 60 miles per hour, sitting at 1,200 RPM on the motorway. Your customer questioning at the beginning of the process would have told you that. How fast do you drive on the motorway, sir? It's a 9-speed gearbox. Let's have a look at it on the road. It's going to take longer to complete the process because it's going to struggle to maintain good exhaust temperatures. So customer questioning. So what you can do there, you can then tell the customer exactly how they need to drive their car. Not someone else's car, their exact car. Because the answer might be, you can drive at 60 miles per hour, but you need to click it into sport gearbox. It'll now set at 2,000 RPM, and this process will now complete in under 20 minutes. That might be your fix. So we can't just go stabbing in the dark, giving the keys back to the customer and saying, the light's out, that's your car fixed. Because that's when your customer's coming back again in 3 weeks with a light on, or 4, 5, 6 weeks. That is not a fix, is it? Taking 300, 400, 500 pounds off the customer and they're coming back 6 weeks later with the same warning lights is not a good business model, is it? So introducing a good process. So once we've done our customer questioning, we have a 15-step process that our guys go through to assess the problem and see where we're going next, okay? So get a good process in place. Watching regens on the road, brilliant. Forced regenerations are an absolute no-no for us in our own workshop, okay? We do, on average, between 3 to 5 DPF problems per day in our own workshop, and we never, ever, ever carry out a forced regeneration, okay? So that's something that you can maybe tweak or change in your process. Try to remember what's coming next, you know? So, again, lots and lots of different products out there, although yes, I endorse the JLM stuff because it's high quality and know how it works, and it's, you know, it's my product of choice. There are lots of good products out there. Something to think about. without getting scientific again and boring you with all that nonsense, the thing that we need to be aware of, if we have a vehicle in our workshop with a DPF problem, okay, if you're pouring something into the tank, an additive, how many people here know what that additive does? And don't say it cleans the DPF. What I mean is, how does it do that? And the simple way to look at it is, rather getting all sciencey, is do your own research. Okay? Get a problem-free car, go and data log it on a given road, same road speed, same RPM, same everything. Then add your treatment. Then go and do exactly the same again. It's a fault-free car. If your exhaust temperatures are 100 to 150 degrees higher, then your additive is hot, isn't it? Okay? If you go out and do your road test and the exhaust temps are exactly the same, then the additives are not. Why is this a problem? If the DPF was blocked, what do we think happens to our exhaust temperatures? You stick your hand over the back of an exhaust and cause a restriction. What do you think is going to happen to the temperature in the DPF? Is it going to go down or is it going to go up? It's going to go up, isn't it? So you've already got an increase in exhaust temperature. The ECU sees a high soot loading and it wants to trigger a regeneration. It's going to add fuel into there to do what? To increase temperature, isn't it? Yeah? So you now have two things going on that are pushing the temperature this way. So on a blocked DPF, you do not want to introduce something in the tank that is also going to be pushing temperature this way, because that's now fighting against you. And the ECU can lose control, and this is where we see damaged DPFs down to over temperature. Now, these additives aren't bad. It's just not the way to do it when the DPF's blocked. Additives that increase temperature are actually a really good way of keeping the DPF clean, because a customer that does a lot of short journeys, so they absolutely have their place. So I'm not saying they don't. Think about when you're using them. If you've got a car that only does the school run and goes shopping and does a lot of town work, and the DPF's not blocked, and the car is problem-free, then this is going to help your customer. Because going up slight inclines, it'll have a bit of an increase in exhaust temps, and it'll help to keep the soot content down. So it's not that they don't have their place, but certainly not something I would use with a heavily blocked up DPF. And if I don't know what it does or how it does it, then I'm not going to pour it into a customer's vehicle, because the DPF, when it goes wrong, is very, very expensive. And the customer's car drives into my workshop, I can't now tell them it doesn't run because the DPF's melted or cracked. That's a me problem, isn't it? So if you're charging for a service, that's something you can do. And this isn't about one product better than another. It's using the right type of product, at the right time. Losing my singing voice now, which isn't a bad thing. But this is really, really critical if you're going to be doing volumes of DPF repairs. And I'll almost guarantee a lot of you will have a product on the shelf that says DPF cleaner that you pour in, but you don't know if it's hot or not. So it's something to go away and do your own homework, do your own research, and make sure you're using the right product at the right time, okay? So the ones that are hot, luckily this isn't a GLM promo, that's just what I use. They do preventative measure products and ones that are designed to clean the DPF. But just make sure that you know which ones are increasing it and which ones are staying at the same level. Luckily for us, the GLM ones don't increase temperature, they work in a different manner. So, don't be this guy, all right? This hashtag, it's a bit of a joke. These guys are laughing, Lawson and stuff like that, because on our forum from the DPF Doctor Network, it's an ongoing thing. Cars are coming to our workshop and we can't repair the DPF because it's destroyed, okay? So every 2 or 3 days, someone will post on there, this one's had some fire juice. And by the time it comes to us, the DPF's cracked or melted or damaged. So yes, we teach the guys how to spot a damaged DPF, so we're not wasting any of the customer's money trying to clean it when it's not going to be successful. But the primary reason for this is, obviously you know which category the fire juice is in. It's not a criticism of the product, it's the wrong product at the wrong time. So people have maybe put 2 cans of additive in there that are increasing temperature. So that's fighting against us, isn't it? Then we see a vehicle in that's had 2 or 3 forced regenerations. Imagine doing that while it's got 2 cans of fire juice in the tank. It's increasing the risk factor massively. And we're seeing an upturn of that, which is quite disheartening, to be honest, for the customer. When you're saying to the customer, we now need to put a couple of £1,000 DPF in your car, but we probably could have fixed it if this hadn't have been done. So think about this in your own workshops. Don't just go start pouring stuff in the tank and doing forced regenerations, because it is going to cause some harm, okay? So, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Sorry, it's been quite short and sweet, like I said. But to summarize, no matter how complicated the fault is, keep it simple, okay? And one thing you can also introduce, something that I've spent thousands of hours on, is learning good vehicles. Because if you don't know what's good, what is the point in looking at all them numbers on the scan tool if you don't know what you're expecting to see, okay? So if you've got a quiet day, brilliant little thing to introduce for apprentices. If you've got an apprentice in the workshop and you want to give them some good in-house training, don't give them the broken cars. Give them the good ones. The more familiar you are with good vehicles, the more things are going to jump out at you on road test, aren't they? That's not right. It's waving its hand at you, because it's now, that bit is not what you're expecting to see. So familiarization with good vehicles is key, okay? So keep it simple. Get some good data, so you know what mass airflow you're looking for when the EGR is open and closed on that particular vehicle, because you know what you're expecting to look for. So then you start pinpointing problems and getting some direction much more quickly, okay? So keep it simple. Think back to the wheelie bins. Is it blocked? Is it blocked because too much rubbish is going in there, or it's not getting empty? That would be, can it regen or can it not? Can the vehicle do what it's designed to do? Okay? So, sorry it's been short and sweet. We could talk about this for days, but I just thought I'd put some things in there that might help workshops that are especially carrying out lots of forced regenerations and stuff like that. So, thanks again for taking time out of your busy day to come and listen to it. I'll be heading over in the opposite corner into the experts lounge shortly. You're welcome to come and ask any questions or discuss any problem jobs you've had or whatever. And from 2 p.m. onwards, I'll be on the JLM stand just on B30 there. So thanks for listening in. Thanks for not falling asleep. Thanks for not throwing anything. There's a few suspects in this room that I expected a few things chucked at the front here. But so hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll speak to you all later. Cheers.